If you're a coach who wants to market your business in less time, stay tuned. I'm going to be sharing the exact workflow that I use to market my coaching business in less than 4 hours a week. Let's get into it. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients so they can make more money and live their most aligned life. Now today on the Wholehearted Business Show, I'm going to be talking all about how we can market our coaching business in less time. Now, we're all busy, we all have full lives, we all want our businesses to be a success. So we don't have an unlimited amount of time, and most of us, especially when we're in the earlier days of our business, do not have a massive team, and some of us just don't necessarily want to have a massive team. So if you're on your own, or perhaps it's you and a VA who is supporting your business growth, then we need to be really effective and efficient when it comes to marketing our businesses. And in today's episode of the show, I'm going to share with you a 4-hour marketing workflow and basically the kind of blueprint that I use to market my coaching business in less time so that I can get more done and actually spend more time living the life that I want to live, because essentially that's what it's all about. So like I say, before I dig into all of the nitty gritty stuff, I think really the premise for this, and ultimately we all have a limited amount of time, and I know a lot of the coaches that I support, they really value having a slow, spacious life. That's a really high priority of mine. I don't want to be working like 50 hours a week. At the moment, I work about 20 to 25 hours a week, sometimes a lot less actually. And I don't have a lot of time to market my coaching business. So when I do spend time marketing, it needs to be shit hot basically. And this 4-hour workflow is like the basis for everything that I've done over the last kind of year and a half, and it's really effective. There's lots of different ways that you can approach this to make it work for you in your business, but this is the exact thing that I do in mine so that you can get a sense of what it looks like. The majority of this is not on social media, so that's another potential benefit. I know I've spoken about that last week on the show. Again, I'll put a link for that if you want to go back and look. I was talking about how do we get more clients without social media. So most of this is off of social media, but there's still a social media element if you want to explore that. And really this is just about like, how can we do something that is going to work as the foundation for our coaching businesses and the foundation for our marketing that is really time effective, so that we're not just wasting time faffing around. And I'm going to explain the whole process to you today. Another thing that this strategy, this workflow really helps with is consistency. Now, before we get into what it looks like, note on consistency, because I think this is really important. As much as I hate to admit it, consistency really does help, and it's a tricky one. I have a really interesting, tricky relationship with consistency. I think as a woman who has monthly cycles and whose energy is often in very different places at different times of the month, consistency can be really difficult. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this might relate to that. Like, consistency can sometimes be really tricky. However, when we use the approach that I'm going to talk about, it does make being consistent outwardly a lot easier than the other ways that you might want to approach it. And like I say, there's lots of different pros and cons to this. I'm going to try and talk through some of them. There's different ways that you can tweak this to make it work for you, but I do think consistency is so important, and this strategy, this way of working, I think really helps with showing up in your business consistently. This approach is also heavily based in content marketing. So if you're not sure what content marketing is, it's basically where you create stuff, usually written content, audio content or video content, in order to market your business, in order to get in front of the right people, basically the people who have the problems that you solve or the aspirations that you help them achieve, and do so on a consistent, repeatable basis, and then connect with them in some way, shape or form. So that's like the core of it, but this is based on content-based marketing. Again, looking back to what I talked about last week when we were talking about getting more clients without social media, this is the organic element of your marketing. This is something that you can use. And again, for me, like, this is the absolute foundation of my business. And this is why I commit to it, and I commit hard. If any of you guys have been following me for a little while, I post a new video on YouTube and a new podcast and a new blog every single Monday. Without fail, I have a 2-week break over midwinter and I have a 2-week break over midsummer, but otherwise I am showing up every single week. And that doesn't have to mean that you have to show up with the same level as I do. I'm full-time in my business. I have a VA who supports me and I'm able to do this. It's not necessarily going to be right for everyone, but again, this is where you can tweak and change this and make it work for you. So the first thing we need to think about with this strategy is what your core platform is. Your core platform is basically like, where's the place that you are creating your content for first and foremost? Like, what is the initial form of content that you're creating? So this could be, and in this case, I would really be suggesting that it's either your blog, your podcast, or it's a YouTube channel where you can create longer form video. That would be my suggestions for this, but it could also be, you could also use the strategy for Instagram or TikTok. So there's lots of different ways you can use it, but you want to have your core platform. If you were thinking Pinterest, it needs to be a blog, because Pinterest and blogging are best mates. You don't want to be doing one without the other, really. That's the way to look at it. So you want to decide what your core platform is. And often what I say to people with this is, think about the way that you want to create content, like the first way that you create content. What's the most natural way for you to create content? And perhaps that's writing, and that's the way that you do it. Or perhaps you really enjoy doing audio and talking about stuff, or perhaps it's video and you really enjoy the visual element of video. Think about what feels best to you, and that's probably indicative of what your core platform is. However, just to say, when I do this, I often switch between the initial form that the content takes as being a video or being an actual written blog post. Right now, as I'm recording this, I've written some very loose notes, and the initial form that this content is going to take is a video. However, sometimes I much prefer to write a really detailed blog post and then create the video after, when I've got those very detailed notes from the blog post to riff off of. But other times, like today, I fly by the seat of my pants and I just go for it. And both tend to work all right for me. But again, I think when you're starting out, it's really good to have a clear idea of what the initial form your content is going to take. So that's the first stage. That's the first thing that you're going to do, is decide on your core platform. And then from that, it's thinking about, okay, so what are your secondary platforms? Like, what are the other places that you want to show up in? I wouldn't necessarily be having like loads of other platforms that you want to be showing up on. I would keep it to a smaller number to begin with. So for me, and this probably sounds like a lot, again, my kind of core platform is my blog. Now, again, sometimes I create a video first or blogging first, but for me, the way that I see it in my head is that the blog is the sun of my kind of marketing solar system. And the reason for that is because I own my blog. I do not own any of these other platforms, but I own my blog. So I always see that as the place that pulls all of the threads of marketing together. So my blog is the core platform. So I'm always creating content for the blog primarily. So if you look at any of the blog posts on my website, you will see, certainly recent ones over the last kind of year and a half, that they are written content with an embedded YouTube video and an embedded podcast. So basically what happens is I record this video and then, or I'll create the written blog post and then create this video. It's one of those two things comes first. And then from that, I basically turn that into other forms of content for my secondary platforms. So if my blog is my core, then I've got YouTube and podcasting as secondary. I've also got Instagram and Pinterest as well. And this is what I'm really thinking about when I'm creating this 4-hour workflow, is like, how can I maximize what I'm doing, and how can I maximize being seen and found on these other platforms without having to do any more work than what I'm doing right now? So basically what that looks like is recording a video that then becomes a podcast. So this video, if you're listening or watching this on YouTube, this version becomes a podcast. So the video becomes a podcast and the blog post is there as well. The video kind of becomes a blog post, or the blog post becomes a video. Those things are interchangeable in my workflow. And then from that point, it's okay, how can I take this content that I've created for my kind of core platform of blog? And to be fair, when I say secondary platforms, I think YouTube and podcasting is really my core things as well. But it's like, how can I take that content that I've created and then repurpose it for other platforms and increase my reach and increase how I'm getting seen? Now, once upon a time, that wouldn't have been necessarily a good idea. And some people sometimes worry with content repurposing that it comes off as being lazy, or that if people see the same content on multiple platforms, it's going to be off-putting, or you're going to be up in people's faces and stuff like that. However, I disagree with that. I think these days, because of the way that algorithms work, it's highly unlikely that anyone other than your biggest fans are going to see your content in multiple places. If anyone is seeing your content on multiple platforms, it's probably because they're a super fan and they will not mind, because they love you, which is lovely. So that's another thing to think about. But basically, it's about how can you then repurpose that. So usually the time for me, the workflow goes, create notes on the content that I want to create, record the video, edit the video, pull off the audio feed for the podcast, publish everything schedule everything, publish it. And then from that point, then it's okay, so how can I share it onto these other platforms? And things like repurposing some of the ideas and concepts from my videos into reels on Instagram, talking about stuff on stories, and then certainly for Pinterest is really straightforward because it's about sharing that blog post. Pinterest has got another element that I'm very much in the kind of process of exploring, which is idea pins, and in the middle of coming up with a format for how I'm going to approach that with my VA and how I want that to look and feel for my business in terms of repurposing some of the video elements into idea pins and things as well. But that's essentially it. And when you have that kind of core platform approach that you then repurpose, that means that you can market your coaching business in lots of different places in much less time than if you were trying to create separate bits of content for all of these different platforms. It is quite a structured workflow, and once you do it, it can sound like quite a lot of stuff, but once you do it and once you've got in the habit of doing it, it becomes easier. Another thing that makes this workflow even better and even more time effective is to batch your content creation. So right now, this is the second video out of 3 videos that I'm doing in a day of batching. Along with this batching, I'm also batching up some stuff for short form videos. So your short form videos is things like your reels, your TikToks, your Pinterest idea pins, that kind of thing. But that means that you can, again, even more make it more time effective and more time efficient. And when you batch, so right now, TMI, but right now I am in the week, I'm very close to coming up to my ovulation, so I'm feeling much more energized and much more happy being visible and much more happy being seen. So I'm batching this up now so that in a couple of weeks, when I am those few days before your period, when you feel like you want to hit everyone in the face and sit on the sofa with a cup of hot chocolate and do nothing, that I've actually got content ready to go. So that's batching up as well. And that's essentially how it works. So if that sounds good to you, if you want to be able to create this kind of workflow for yourself, and again, this is just what it looks like for me in my business, and it doesn't have to look exactly the same for yours. It can be slightly different. You can have a completely different core platform. There's so many different ways to apply this strategy. Really what we're talking about here is content repurposing, doubled down on, but it's a really great way to approach it. What we've covered today is essentially how to get all of your core content-based organic marketing done in just a few hours a week. Now again, I'm creating content on a weekly basis. You can cut this time in half if you want to create content every 2 weeks. I create content every week. You don't have to create it every week. You could use this workflow and do it every 2 weeks and figure out how you want to approach it. There's definitely lots of different ways you can do it to make it more sustainable for you, and I really encourage you to explore that and think about how it needs to work for you and your business and your core platform and what it is that you want to achieve. So this whole workflow is going to give you that sustainable foundation for your entire business. And what you can add in on top of this is you can add in things like collaborations and paid ads, but this is your foundation. And when you have that in place and you add things on top, it works really well. So we cover all of this and more inside my new membership, the Content Marketing for Coaches Club. Basically, that club is going to support you with all of your content-based marketing that's not necessarily on social media. So really what this club is focusing on is your podcasting, your YouTube, and your blog, and Pinterest as well. Your search-based platforms, which again, for me, is like an essential foundational part of your business. So the club is going to help you through, we have a live Q&A call once a month. We have Voxer office hours with me, so you get direct one-to-one support from me inside the club around all of your content marketing questions. We've got a podcast as well, a private podcast feed. So every month you're going to get a podcast from me where I talk a bit about content marketing, the trends, what's going on right now. And every month you're going to get a pack full of templates, content marketing ideas, blog post ideas, all sorts of different things that you can action so that you're never stuck thinking like, oh my goodness, what should I create this week? What should I do? What's the right things to do? So that you're actually creating stuff that's going to work to actually grow your business. There's a whole bunch of other things in there. There's like discounts for some of my other services in there. There's all sorts of fantastic things. But basically, if you want to get your content marketing, get that foundation for your coaching business, get that nailed for just $21, £17 a month if you join us in the next couple of weeks, then you're going to be sorted, and it's really going to help you to build that up and to become consistent. Inside there as well, there's also a content planner, so you can plan your content, which is really going to help with the batching. And we also have that workflow so that you can look at that and see that in more detail and take that and put that into Asana or into Trello or into Notion and actually use that as a basis for your own processes as well. If you have any questions at all about the Content Marketing for Coaches Club, please let me know. Get in touch with me. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm at wholeheartedlylaura, or pop me an email. I'm laura@wholeheartedlylaura.com, and I will tell you all about it. The links are all in the description box. Do check that out. It's going to be a fantastic membership. I'm so excited that enough people have been interested that I'm going to run with this. So I'm really excited to get it going and to really support you guys to create this content that is completely transformed my business. And again, especially for you guys who are like health and life coaches, spiritual coaches, you guys who are working with business to consumer, so not business to business, where your people are the people out there living their real lives, not the business people aren't those people, but business to consumer people, the opportunities, honestly, with content-based marketing. And that's how I grew when I was a health coach and when I was making £40,000 to £50,000 a year as a health coach. And I only dropped that number because I think it's important for people to know that it's possible to do that. It's not as a comparison thing or not as a show-off thing. It's just to show that I actually know what I'm talking about and that I have done it. That content-based marketing was a massive part of that. And yes, things have changed a bit, but essentially that was the basis for me being successful in that niche and in that arena and in the kind of self-care, slow living kind of space. Content marketing is so effective. I'm so excited to help some of you create this foundation for your business too. So do let me know if you've got any questions. Do check out the club. It's going to be so cool. I'm so excited to get that started, and I will see you next time, guys. Take care. Bye.